So, Angel, how are you? So you are the Global Director of Corporate Marketing, Brand Experience, Digital Engagement in Banco Santander. Well, you really need to clarify what that is. Okay, let's be honest. I think this is the second time that you and I get chats here in a public event, and you asked me the same question a while ago, it's true. I don't know what I didn't understand your answer. Well, let's be honest, I don't understand it either. But we're not here to talk about myself. We're here to talk about the NGOs, about the social causes, and I think this is actually the third time that we meet on the stage, and we have always talked about NGOs. It's something that is very dear to you, and but let's start to have a broader picture. It is said that what's not on the media does not exist. We live in a society where I would say that we are overexposed to the media messages. And I'm talking about the media in the broader sense, traditional media and the rest. Would you say that we are actually giving enough room to social causes in the media or not? What's your take on this? Well, I cannot talk on behalf of all the media. I can talk about my own channel, my own radio broadcasting. So I can only represent my radio. But I believe, honestly, that we are. I think that there is a big problem. Journalists, politicians, feed each other in an excessive manner. What we're doing is we have created a codependency that is actually pushing away the audiences, the public, the viewers, the listeners from TVs, radios, broadcasters. For instance, if you have to talk about the censor motion and you have to explain the last details about the last scandal in PP in Madrid, the Popular Party in Madrid, or what Podemos has done, the political party Podemos has done, it's of course you need to tell people about this, but is this the most important thing for people? For instance, in my program, I'm from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. at night, and I talk with my audience. I inform my audience, don't I have anything else to talk about? So I think we are to blame to a great extent. As journalists, we need to select the topics. Then we have to talk about this in your column, in your editorial article, in your program, etc. If you always select based on the agenda set up by the politicians, then you're not doing the right thing. If we talk about other aspects, for instance, economy, if you check the economic agenda of the day and you try to see what the CEOE president has to do, or what Nadia Calviño has to do today, or Christine Lagarde has to do today, or what is happening with the Federal Reserve, such as it happened yesterday, you realize that the news are based on the agenda set up by the politicians or the companies. So at the end of the day, 90% of the Spanish companies are actually SMEs. 70% of the gross internal product is based on SMEs. So we're not doing the right choices. So to answer your question, is that part of the society well represented in the media? I would say probably not, because we do the wrong selection. Well, you have already started answering my following question. It's true that in the media we discuss a lot about politics. maybe you have given us a reason because there's a sort of mutual feeding between politicians and journalists. And I would say that you're somewhat an exception in this environment. You talk a lot about the causes, and you also obviously have a lot of impact because you have a great number of followers and you give a lot of visibility, and this visibility entails a great responsibility. You were saying before that to pick a topic is important. How do you pick the topics that you're going to discuss? If you're going to talk about a certain specific NGO or more broadly speaking, a cause, how do you make these choices? Well, it depends on the day, and maybe even I would say it depends on the hour of the day. This is a live program, so I receive at 5 p.m. the script and the broad lines of the program at 2 minutes before 7, and I am given information on the spot throughout the duration of the program. So the news obviously are the priority. So if there's anything that is really current news, a flash news, we obviously need to report that. Or if there are certain things that we need to obviously have a grasp of the reality of what's going on so that the program is somewhat grounded. We obviously need to trust the people who present their ideas that we are going to later choose in order to develop them. In the taxi, I was preparing the editorial of today's at 8 o'clock. When you listen to it on the radio later, you might think, oh my God, he has given it so much thinking. And to be honest, you can look at it on my smartphone. I was writing it in the taxi. If you check all the media and you see that the news are very similar. The director of the Guardia Civil has resigned. There's a collapse in the transportation due to strikes in France. So the president of the Barca football team has met somebody else, or there are certain suspicions of corruption with the European funds here or there, or Yolanda Diaz is crushing the expectations of the current government. But this is right now. Probably in 5 hours, the whole picture will have changed. Now, the thing is, today, we see this piece of news that I will bring to the topic of the day. Today at 9 o'clock, the hospital Gregorio Marañón has performed pioneering surgery to a baby who weighed 300 grams. It's a type of surgery that was performed without knives and with a catheter to connect the heart. It's a baby girl who weighs 800 grams. And out of all the headers that I have read a minute ago now, which one calls your attention more? As a father, as a husband, as a citizen of the world, I have to inform you about all the rest of the news that I have told you before, that it would be foolish to say otherwise. But the most striking, the most incredible thing that has happened today is what this medical team has done. I suppose I cannot interview the parents of the baby girl. Imagine in what state they might be today, and probably the doctors are very hard to reach, but they do deserve any first page in any main newspaper. So out of all the topics, in my main topic, I will try to talk to the doctors in the Gregorio Marañón Hospital at 9 o'clock. Obviously, I cannot dismiss the rest of the news, but this is the topic of the day. How can I choose this? Well, I'm lucky enough to be the director of a program, and I choose it because I am entitled to that. And this was suggested by my team yesterday, and I think about the things that might interest my listeners. Well, you're talking here about the empathy, the emotions, the emotional side of it. This is information from the fundraising association. They tell us that the profile of the donor is that the key element for making donations is empathy. These things that really get to us are the things that we want to donate about, and this gives you somewhat hope, because if you listen to the rest of the news, you really can feel very discouraged. Well, I'm telling you a lot of secrets from the business, but I love being politically incorrect, whether in my program or outside. We set up the program, dividing it into half hours, and we saw that the programs is pretty loaded with bad news, whether it is the war or politics. Everything creates this sense of anger as a listener. So who really matters here is my client, in quotes. So we thought, if we have a short story at 9 o'clock, a story that is moving, when you have people in the sofa, very tired, or maybe they're lying already in bed, listening to the radio with their headsets, we want to finish the day with a nice piece of news, with hope, with a pretty story each day. I'm sure there must be a really nice story every day, so that people go to bed thinking, oh, well, that was nice. That was nice to hear. So I don't know what today's story will be, but we always try to work by thinking of something positive, because the rest of the program is so full of bad news. Today we've been working on a story about a nurse, Ana Reojos Bacardi, that's her name. To have the family name Bacardi is like having the name Walker, as in Johnny Walker. It's a name that is very much related with spirits. And in particular, this family, the Bacardi family, is the rum producers family. So this family has set up an NGO. The mother of this nurse has created it, and they support the education of girls and minors in general, both in Cuba and other countries. And the name of the foundation is Bacardi, and the name of the family is Bacardi. So it's just a marvelous piece of news, and we're trying to shape it into the news that we can broadcast later on. And you have to think that, okay, the next rum with Coke that I drink will be, I will be thinking of this family and this foundation, and this will make me think of a family that still thinks about their roots, their origins, and they keep supporting people in Cuba and in other countries, and they have never forgotten their legacy. And then we obviously have to talk about whatever scandal there is in the political world, etc. I will give you another anecdote. A year and a month ago, we were in Kiev, and you talk about the spies networks and the hell that was starting to be built. And we found a group of nuns of 74, 78, and 80 something years of age, who were from the in a school that was led by their order, their religious order. And we were not aware of how big the issue was going to be back then. This was just the beginning of the conflict. And back then, we found these three angels, and we, of course, had to ask them to be our correspondents there. They told us incredible stories. So, did I have to talk about the war? Obviously. Did I have to talk about what we expected there to happen? Of course. But I need to tell the story of these three wonderful nuns. Okay. So in this case, you found these nuns. You are in the front of the conflict, and then Bacardi is a famous name. So there's a recognizable story, a recognizable family name. But if we think that last year, there were about 60-something% of Spaniards who have donated to an NGO, and 39% have not done it because they do not trust the NGOs. So, for instance, you have found all these pieces of news that are very interesting and remarkable, but when you find that sort of news about the amount of people donating, what can you do with that? How can you build trust and especially avoid people having such a mistrust with regards to NGOs when we also live in a world where we see a lot of greenwashing and social washing? As a representative of the media, when you're working also with entities as Fundación Lealtad, how can you do from your standing point, how can you promote causes that are real, that are trustworthy? How can we eliminate this mistrust on the side of the population in order to promote the nations? Well, as for me, I do not have the means, or I do not have any monitoring agency or organization who can tell me that this organization is trustworthy. When I have a proposal from Fundación La Caixa, for instance, obviously I need to think if this fits into who I am, etc. Because journalists have another problem. Many of these NGOs are a brand. They are marketing. So I have to work with the people in charge in my radio. Every time I say, for instance, La Caixa, I cannot forget that this brand has a certain implication. So you can say, for instance, Gustavo Suarez Pertierra from UNICEF has presented a wonderful plan that they're developing somewhere. And then the leaders in my radio say that they have carried out a paid campaign in one of our competitors. So we need to struggle with these situations, and we need to develop our own tricks in order to overcome these type of issues. But let's be honest, this is a commercial radio, and all the people who have been sitting here on the stage, they represent a certain brand. So we need to maintain this equilibrium, this balance, in order not to sell a brand and give them a certain advertisement or publicity. So going to the general figures, I understand that 39% are claiming not to donate because they lack trust, or the NGOs lack the trust for them to donate. No. This was the second reason. The first reason that they gave was that they lack the economic, the power, they lack the resources to donate, and the second reason was the mistrust. The first reason, I believe it. Obviously, people are struggling with their shopping lists, but it's important. It's unbelievable that people do not trust the NGOs. It's impossible not to trust Red Cross, Caritas, MSF, or Manos Unidas, or Medico Mundi. It's impossible. Really, you don't trust any NGO, not even in your community church? To me, that's merely an excuse. Well, these are the figures. I didn't make them up. Well, it's interesting what you say, and you're probably right. There's the question of trust on the one hand, and there's also the topic of the youngsters. For instance, from your program, you can give this more visibility to these issues that we are discussing here today. But in this world, when we think about the next generations, about the young people, and how we can raise awareness among them about the social causes, they seem to be a generation that is very committed, but Celestino and Inez were talking about innovation. Do we need to innovate with regards to giving visibility to these courses? How do you see that the new means are in terms of giving this visibility? Are the young generations rather focused in TikTok than in other media? Well, we are in a world that is moving very fast in terms of the industrial revolution, and it really surpasses us. And even to those who are convinced that we need to renew ourselves all the time, the third sector needs to recycle all the time, but also the insurance sector needs to renew itself all the time. And what if we think about what was going on 10 years ago and what is going on now, or what banks were like 10 years ago and what they look like now? So the change is a constant change, an ongoing change. And when we talk about young people, you say that they're more committed than ever. I would put a question mark to that. We also say that they are the best prepared generation. I would also wonder about that. If we compare the information about youngsters above 14 and what they think about domestic violence, they're more sexist than my father, than even my grandfather. So let's take this with a pinch of salt. So of course, do we need to be in the social media? Yes, but let's say it clearly. 90% of the social media are just rubbish for those youngsters. And do we need to try and sell them in a positive manner? Of course. And obviously, there are wonderful young men and women, and we see that when we do these campaigns for gathering food for assistance and for NGOs, but when we explore the data and we look at the headers, we see that there's a lot of violence coming from the younger ones, from the teenagers. Obviously, we need to focus in them because they are the future. In 30 years from now, I won't be here, they will. So the only thing I want to say is that we are doing many things wrong. Well, Angel, I would love to keep talking with you. I would also love that, but I need to wrap up my editorial for today as well. So don't worry. Yes, but just to finish our chat today, I would like to go back to the importance of double checking things. It's important to know that there's a cause that is trustworthy, that there is an NGO behind it that is also trustworthy. And I would like to highlight this, and also I would like to highlight the extraordinary work of Fundación Lealtad. In our bank, we try to do a lot, but there is a reputational risk and a social washing risk. Everything that we do needs to be really authentic so that things can really get moving, and we take this very seriously. And last year, we invested 7 billion in different 700,000 euro in NGOs, and we needed to make sure that these NGOs were valid and that the money that we were injecting actually reached the cause. And I want to thank now Fundación Lealtad, because they help us a lot in deciding and picking who and what cause we should support. And I think that we need to keep working with the monitors who are carrying out this wonderful and rigorous work to help us understand what are the valid causes, the reliable causes and NGOs. And today, don't worry, we will be listening to you because I love your program, and thank you also for the work that you carry out. You, in particular, give a lot of visibility to these causes, and this is very important. Just one thing. I'm the director of the program, and as a supposed leader of opinion, which is a term I don't really like, but the team is absolutely key. You can be Ana Botín, but if the director of the bank branch does not work, Ana Botín cannot do anything about this. So if my colleague from the COPE who writes to me and suggests the piece of news about the Bacardi, if she doesn't really grasp the emotional side, the important side of the news, then I would really have nothing to do. So whether the team really believes in the news that we are going to convey, or my work is absolutely pointless. It's true. As always, it is not about a single person, visible person. It's about a full team. Well, thank you very much, Angel. Thank you for your words.